Okay, so we are starting with the structure and the functions of the mitochondrion, especially in relation to cellular respiration. Okay, and you can see the diagram of the mitochondrion, which shows you that in reality, if we have a look at it, if we zoom into its structure through the electron microscope, we will see that it is made up of two membranes instead of one. One is the outer membrane, which you can see more clearly, right? And the other one is the inner membrane. The outer membrane is more permeable to various substances, whereas the inner membrane is more selectively permeable, means it's partially permeable, right? Acha.
Yes.
The name of the inner membrane, and this name you have to remember, this part that I have actually, let me see if it is, no, I can't rub it. So this is the inner membrane, right? I'm going to circle it, like put the highlighter, this one. And you can see that the inner membrane is folded. The name of this inner membrane or the name of these folds is the cristae. And you see I have labeled cristae over here, cristae.
Yeah, Krista, yeah.
Can you see it? Right? And singular is crista. So basically it means these are nothing but these are folds of the inner membrane of the mitochondrion. Now, wherever you see such folded structures, you know that. What is the purpose?
To increase the surface area?
To increase the surface area. Acha. Okay, so as far as the mitochondrion is concerned, can you guess? To increase the surface area for what?
ATP, synthesis of ATP?
Yes, to increase the surface area for the enzymes, which can actually bring about the synthesis of ATP. ठीक है, यहाँ पे बहुत सारे enzymes लगे हुए होंगे, and today we'll do the discussion about those enzymes. So, outer membrane, inner membrane, which is the cristae, and then in between the outer and the inner membrane, you can see this part, which is
intermembranous space.
It also has its biological significance. We'll do that later on. अच्छा, फिर हम आते हैं इस पे the cytoplasm of the mitochondrion. क्या होता है जब हम बच्चों को ना माइटोकॉन्ड्रियन पढ़ाते हैं ना, हम कहते हैं कि ये इसकी मेम्ब्रेन है, ये इसका साइटोप्लाज्म है, तो थोड़ी देर के लिए वो ये समझते हैं कि we are talking about a cell. Do remember that this is not a cell. The cell is somewhere outside over here.
Yeah, this is like
और ये
within
cell के
that.
अंदर,
yeah.
हाँ, within that. But actually, mitochondrion is one of those organelles which is very, very independent. And I'll tell you why it's independent, because number one, it has its own outer and inner membranes. ठीक? It has its own cytoplasm also, और इसके cytoplasm का नाम है, यहाँ पे नहीं दिया हुआ है नाम. The name of the cytoplasm of the mitochondria is known as, let me label it, it's known as matrix. अच्छा ये किया हुआ है, sorry, I forgot. This is the one. Can you see matrix?
Yeah.
Ye part, right? So this is known as the cytoplasm of the mitochondrion, just like the cytoplasm of any normal cell. It is a place where chemical reactions take place. ठीक है? अच्छा, इतने ये चीजें कर ली. Then we have ribosomes also inside the mitochondrion. Do you remember that you had done ribosomes when you were in AS? And do you remember what kind of ribosomes do we have inside mitochondria?
70s?
70s, very good. 70s ribosomes, lighter in weight. And another thing that we have inside the mitochondria is, जो कि यहाँ पे नहीं show हुई भी है, and I can just show it to you with a black color. Maybe यहाँ कहीं draw कर देते हैं. A mitochondria has its own circular DNA. Circular DNA. What's the meaning of circular DNA? What is your understanding about it?
It contains some form of genetic material.
I know DNA is genetic material, but then what do you mean by circular DNA? कुछ पता है?
Yeah, well, like come, like, I mean, it just has a closed loop, right? Like,
no. Circular DNA means, for example, now this is a cell. I'm just drawing any random cell and nucleus, and I'm drawing human DNA. So human DNA जो nucleus के अंदर है ना, वो circular नहीं है. That's linear. This is a very basic concept जो AS में आना चाहिए, and I'm surprised कि आपको याद नहीं. कोई मसला नहीं, हम कर लेते हैं. Linear DNA होता है हमारा, right? हमारा. अब हमारे ही अंदर जो है ना वो, we have organelles like mitochondrion, and just now I said mitochondrion has its own circular DNA. तो इसका मतलब क्या? इसका मतलब ये है कि ये जो लीनियर डीएनए होता है ना, इट हैज प्रोटीन्स नोन एज हिस्टोन प्रोटीन्स अटैच्ड ऑन इट. कुछ याद है हिस्टोन प्रोटीन्स क्या
Yeah,
थी?
histone proteins zyada hain. Yes.
ठीक है. Basically, histone proteins actually hold all the linear DNA together क्योंकि हमारा DNA is too long and too complicated. तो उसको fold करने के लिए, and since it's folded and coiled, तो वो histone proteins उन coil को tangle होने से बचाती है. But circular DNA जो होता है ना, वो अगर मैं इसको zoom in करूँ ना, तो circular DNA ऐसा होता है. It's like this. It's like this. ठीक है. And just a minute. Okay, sorry अब्दुल्ला.
No worries.
हाँ, तो सर्कुलर डीएनए ऐसे होता है, ठीक है, बिल्कुल सर्कल की तरह. ऐसे क्रोमोसोम, इट्स नॉट लाइक, ये ऐसे नहीं होता, लीनियर डीएनए की तरह नहीं होता. इट्स जस्ट लाइक अ सर्कल. ठीक है, ऐसे होता है. एंड व्हाई आई एम स्ट्रेसिंग ऑन इट इज that the same circular DNA you have in bacteria as well. Remember prokaryotes? You know what prokaryotes are?
Yep. Yep.
ठीक है, उनके पास भी ऐसा ही सर्कुलर डीएनए होता है, इस तरह प्लाज्मिड के फॉर्म में. और ये जो ऐसे लूप ऑफ डीएनए होता है ना, वो भी सर्कुलर होता है. अच्छा, व्हाई इज दिस डीएनए डिफरेंट? बिकॉज दिस डीएनए डजंट हैव हिस्टोन प्रोटीन्स.
Okay.
इसको जरूरत इसलिए नहीं है हिस्टोन प्रोटीन्स की कि नंबर वन, द डीएनए इज वेरी सिंपल. माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल डीएनए इतनी ज्यादा इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं कैरी करता जितना हमारा डीएनए करता है, हमारे न्यूक्लियस का डीएनए करता है. तो दैट्स व्हाई इट डजंट नीड हिस्टोन प्रोटीन्स टू प्रिवेंट इट्स टैंगलिंग एंड ऑल. अच्छा, एक जो इसके अंदर क्वालिटी है ना, जस्ट लाइक आवर डीएनए इज दैट एनीथिंग व्हिच इज डीएनए हैज अ क्वालिटी ऑफ सेल्फ रेप्लिकेशन, व्हिच मींस कि जिस भी चीज के पास डीएनए है ना, technically it can make copies of its own self. So hence mitochondria, by virtue of having, now let's go back to this picture. क्योंकि mitochondrion के पास अपना DNA है, तो it can make its own copies. कैसे? For example, if a person is is physically very active, he's an athlete, then inside only one of his muscle cells या फिर एक सेल उठा लेंगे ना हम, लिवर सेल, उसके अंदर there may be 2000 to 5000 mitochondria. इतने ज्यादा, one cell की बात कर रही हूँ, right? Why? Because हम जब कहते हैं ना athletes अपने आप को train करते हैं, तो they train their muscles in such a manner that the number of the mitochondria also increases. So that's why हम कहते हैं ना उनकी वो endurance training जो होती है. I hope you know what the meaning of endurance, right?
Yeah, I understand the meaning.
Right?
Yeah.
हाँ, तो endurance का मतलब क्या? What do you mean by endurance? If an athlete has trained himself for endurance, what do you mean by that?
Like he's able to survive longer, right? He has more energy in him. He's able to
Exactly.
last
तो वो
longer.
एनर्जी को, exactly, तो कौन बनाता है वो एनर्जी? माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया. तो फॉर एग्जांपल, if an athlete has worked on his endurance, so basically what has he done? He has worked on increasing his muscle mass. जितना उसका मसल मास बढ़ेगा, उतना ही उसके हर मसल सेल के अंदर there will be lots and lots of mitochondria.
Yeah.
The more the
Yeah.
mitochondria, the more the number of ATP molecules, and hence the more the stamina for a
Yeah.
longer time, right? ठीक है.
Yeah.
ये क्यों है, अब आपसे पूछा जाएगा. In fact, there was an assessment today in my school, and this question was asked, from students, and they got puzzled. हालांकि उनको अच्छी तरह से समझाया गया था, फिर भी कंफ्यूज हो गए. उनसे ये पूछा गया था कि what is that quality of a mitochondrion that helps it live independently? So what will be your answer?
Miss, can you repeat the end of the question? अभी आपने end में क्या कहा था? Okay.
हाँ, मैंने ये कहा था कि what is that quality of a mitochondrion that enables it to live independently?
It's able to I'm not sure, Miss. It's able to what? I'm not sure. How is it able to?
How is it able to live in? अभी तो मैंने क्या बात की थी कि माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया के पास डीएनए है. जिसके पास भी डीएनए होता है वो अपनी कॉपीज खुद बना सकता है. मींस इट कैन सेल्फ रेप्लिकेट. ठीक है. एनी ऑर्गेनल, इफ इट हैज इट्स ओन डीएनए, इट मींस इट कैन मेक कॉपीज ऑफ इटसेल्फ. अब जब आप अपनी कॉपियां खुद बना रहे हो, So you don't need to depend on any other organelle. You just, you have your own DNA. आपकी मर्जी है, आप अपने एक कॉपी बनाओ, दो बनाओ, तीन बनाओ, हजारों बनाओ. So this means that the very reason that a mitochondria has its own DNA is that it will be able to live independently, independent of the DNA which is inside the nucleus. ये समझ आ रही है बात? या नहीं आ रही?
Miss, एक second. I'm like, wait, can you repeat this?
Okay, I'll repeat it once again. Let me just show you a diagram. फिर
Yeah.
समझ आएगा. Okay. This is your an animal cell. ठीक है?
Yeah.
All these red structures are mitochondrion. ठीक है? The animal cell has a nucleus and the nucleus is full of DNA. Now, since this animal cell has its own DNA, so it can replicate. Today it's 1, tomorrow it can be 2 cells, day after tomorrow it can be 4 cells, and so on. You know this?
Yeah.
ठीक. अच्छा, अब हम आते हैं माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया पे. बहुत सारे ऑर्गेनल्स हैं, ये भी ऑर्गेनल है, ये भी ऑर्गेनल है, गोल्जी apparatus भी ऑर्गेनल है, लेकिन माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया इज अ यूनिक ऑर्गेनल. व्हाई? बिकॉज इट हैज इट्स ओन डीएनए. इसके पास अपना पर्सनल डीएनए है.
Okay.
यानी कि
Yeah.
सेल के पास अपना डीएनए है, वो सेल पूरी अपनी कॉपियां बनाएगा. लेकिन माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया हैज इट्स ओन डीएनए. सो दिस मींस, इसका मतलब क्या? Because it has its own DNA, it can live independent of the DNA of the nucleus. It can live independently. How? It can make copies. अभी एक कॉपी बन जाएगी, थोड़ी देर बाद एक दूसरी कॉपी बन जाएगी, and so on. कैसे कॉपियां बनाएगा? It will use its DNA to make copies. अब
Yeah.
समझ आ रही है अब्दुल्ला बात या नहीं आ रही?
Yeah, अब समझ आ रहा है. Like now I get it. Like it has its own DNA and then it'll be able to use that to then make its own copies and then replicate, right?
हाँ.
Yeah.
So this is something unique about what do you call mitochondria. ठीक है? अब हम दोबारा से यहाँ जाते हैं. We'll again go back to where were we? हाँ. ठीक है, this thing. अच्छा, you tell me now in your own words, how many parts of the mitochondrion have I discussed with you? एक दोबारा से बताओ मुझे, उसका function बताओ.
Okay, so we talked about the intermembrane space. You said that we will cover that like in a second. Then we looked at the inner membrane. In the outer membrane, Miss Alvi, I need to be able to draw the mitochondria, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then we looked at our cristae, which then increases our surface area for ATP synthase, right? For the enzymes to that catalyze the reaction of the production of ATP. Then we looked at our ribosomes. There are about 70S ribosomes. Inside the matrix, all the chemical reactions occur. It contains DNA, but it also contains circular DNA. Circular DNA, it means that it contains, it's able to replicate itself. So it's able to use that DNA to then replicate for itself. So that means the mitochondria is able to survive on its own. That makes it different from other organelles. What else do we talk about? The outer permeable, the outer membrane is more permeable. The inner membrane is less permeable. And like inside the matrix, that's basically like the cytoplasm, right? So that's where like all the chemical reactions occur.
Okay. Achha. So matrix is a site of chemical reactions. DNA is the place where all the genetic material of the mitochondrion is stored. Okay. And due to which the mitochondrion can make its own copies and live independently, independent of the nuclear DNA, right? Achha.
Yeah.
Then on to the most important part, and we are going to do something like details about this part, which is the cristae. Now I'm zooming into the cristae, and you can see that the cristae is studded with these tiny particles, okay? And the shape of these particles is like this. They look like a
Yeah. Miss, what is that called?
This particle is known as the stalked particle. ये नजर आ रहा है आपको? Stalk particle. इस पूरे को हम stalk particle कहते हैं, इस पूरे को. लगता है इसका कोई stalk है.
Miss, can you give me Miss, can you give me 1 second?
Yeah, yeah.
Hi, Miss. Sorry. Mom just called me.
Just a minute. Acha. So the name of this particle is the stalk particle, right? And
Yeah.
the stalk, of course, has a swollen bulb, and this swollen part is actually the ATP synthase.
Okay.
The bulbous part is the ATP synthase, and this stalk is actually a channel protein.
Okay.
Okay, it's a channel protein. Acha, of course, we know what's the purpose of this. अब हमें समझ आएगा कि क्रिस्टी के इतने सारे फोल्ड्स क्यों हैं. Now see, this Christie is loaded, is literally it's loaded. अगर मैं बनाना चाहूँ ना छोटे छोटे करके तो ये मैं हजारों बनाऊंगी, even more than thousands and thousands of what stalk particles, and the more the folds, the more the enzymes. So the more the folds, the more the stalk particles, the more the stalk particles, the more ATP synthase molecule, and hence
okay.
हाँ, समझ आ गई?
Yeah, so the more cristae basically आप कह रही हैं, the more क्या? The more cristae, the more stalk particles, hence the more ATP synthase.
Exactly.
सही है, ठीक है, ये इस point समझ आ गया.
ठीक है, अच्छा. Another thing, on these cristae, we also have some transport proteins. ठीक है, आपने जरूर किए होंगे transport proteins, channel proteins, carrier proteins. So we have lots of transport proteins on the cristae besides the ATP synthase molecule. And the name of those transport proteins is electron transport proteins. ठीक है, तो क्रिस्टी के ऊपर क्या क्या लगा हुआ है? एक तो ATP synthase लगा हुआ है, जिसको हम स्टॉक पार्टिकल भी कहते हैं. ठीक है, and then we have these electron transport proteins also. I am just going to write slide तो मैं आपसे share कर ही लूंगी. Okay, so on the cristae we have electron transport proteins and we have the stalk particle. Stalk particle भी आप कह सकते हो, ATP synthase भी कह सकते हो, right?
Yeah.
So this is the significance of the cristae. अच्छा, the significance of the matrix is, as I told you, कि cytoplasm जो होता है ना, चाहे वो सेल का हो या वो mitochondria का हो, it is the site of chemical reactions. When we are talking about cellular respiration, तो cellular respiration के हिसाब से ना, there are two most important chemical reactions. एक तो Krebs cycle और एक link reaction. ये वो दो reaction हैं जो आपके matrix में होते हैं.
एक सेकंड. Okay, so matrix में हमारे, अच्छा, so आप बोल रही थी ना कि matrix में सारे chemical reactions take place. So those are the Link reaction and the Krebs cycle.
Exactly,
Okay.
right?
मुझे ये याद है, like there's some two link reactions. मुझे बस ये याद है. Two
link reactions. हाँ, वो अभी details हम करेंगे. Details करेंगे. अच्छा, another picture. Another picture जो आपको नजर आ रही है, it's an electron micrographic picture. You can see this mitochondrion has an outer membrane and inner membrane. क्रिस्टी भी नजर आ रहे हैं और जो है मैट्रिक्स भी नजर आ रहा है. ठीक है. अच्छा, लेट्स गो टू पार्ट 2. पार्ट 2 अब मैं इसमें हम थोड़ा सा ज्यादा डिटेल में जाएंगे. ओके, आई वांट यू टू गो थ्रू दिस, रीड दिस वेरी क्विकली. फटाफट रीड करो एंड देन वी विल डिस्कस. इट्स एक्चुअली अ रेपिटेशन.
Okay. So yes, I read this. This is somewhat what we've discussed, right? About how if you're more active.
इसमें क्या बता रहे हैं? हाँ, yes. See, what they are trying to tell you is, of course, that mitochondrion prokaryotes में हो ही नहीं सकता, because when we say कि ये prokaryote है, कल ही आपने बताया था मुझे कि prokaryotes don't have membrane bound organelle. So by that definition, बैक्टीरिया के पास तो माइटोकॉन्ड्रियन होना ही नहीं चाहिए. So this means that mitochondrion is an organelle which is found only in eukaryotes. What is so special about a mitochondrion? It is a site of Krebs cycle and electron transport chain. यानी कि ये वो जगह है जहाँ पे ये सारे reactions हो रहे हैं. ठीक है. Rod shaped है, इनका roughly ये diameter है. They can change their shape. The time lapse photography shows. And also, since they have their own DNA, so they can also increase their number by just multiplying. ठीक है. कैसे? कि कौन से वो दो organs हैं हमारे जो बहुत ज़्यादा energy generate करते हैं, जहाँ बहुत ज़्यादा reactions हो रहे होते हैं. That's the muscle and the liver. So if you look at some of the muscle cells and liver cells, you will see that each cell, a liver cell or a muscle cell, may have as many as 1,000 to 2,000 mitochondria, right? So to cut short, to sum up, we can say mitochondria are the energy generating machines of a cell, the powerhouse or the power station of a cell. यही diagram अभी हमने पीछे किया है. ATP synthase मैं दिखा रही हूँ इसमें. Look, ऐसा shape है इस molecule का, stalk particle. ठीक है. What did I say? That this bulbous portion is the enzyme. और जो ये इसका ये वाला portion है ना, that's the channel protein. कौन सा reaction होगा यहाँ पे? कौन सा होगा इस पूरे उसमें? ये reaction होगा. Remember, ADP plus inorganic phosphate plus 30.5 kilojoules of energy in the presence of ATP synthase will make ATP and water. ये वाला reaction. Just remember this reaction. Okay, now Abdullah, tell me, is this condensation or hydrolysis?
It's condensation. Condensation. Yeah.
बिल्कुल सही, बिल्कुल सही. Can I call this phosphorylation also? Phosphorylation. कल बताया था ना phosphorylation क्या है?
हाँ, आपने explain किया था कि phosphorylation is like another form of that.
हाँ, phosphorylation को अगर literally define करना है तो it's the addition of inorganic phosphate to an organic compound. तो ये एक organic compound है, इसके साथ inorganic phosphate लग रहा है, मतलब वो हो रहा है, sort of combine हो रहा है, तो that's phosphorylation. So ये condensation भी है, ये ATP synthesis भी है, ये phosphorylation भी है. Where is this happening? Exactly मैं अगर बताऊं तो कहाँ पे हो रहा है ये reaction? ये क्रिस्टी पे हो रहा है. आप क्यों बोलोगे कि ये क्रिस्टी पे हो रहा है अब्दुल्ला? Why? Why will you say that this reaction happens?
Because हमारा stalked particle जो है वो तो उस पे
क्रिस्टी पे लगा हुआ है. वो देखो. Now look at this. हाँ.
Synthase is on the stalked particle and वो crystal पे लगा हुआ है.
अब आप इस मेरे डायग्राम में देखो, आपको इसमें ज़्यादा साफ नजर आएगा कि जो पिंक कलर से मैंने मॉलिक्यूल्स बनाए हैं ना, those are the stalk particles. जो मैंने रेड कलर से बनाए हैं, those are the electron transport chains. और जो मैंने ऐसे ग्रीन कलर से यूं शेड किया है, that's the matrix. So to sum up, I would say that essentially there are two most important regions of a mitochondrion, namely the matrix, which is a site of Krebs cycle and many other reactions, the cristae, which is the site of the stalk particle. Since the stalk particle is nothing but ATP synthase, so it would not be wrong to say that this is the site for ATP synthesis. अच्छा, क्रिस्टी के ऊपर ये ट्रांसपोर्ट मॉलिक्यूल्स भी लगे हुए हैं जिनको हम कहते हैं शॉर्ट फॉर्म में ETC कहते हैं, इलेक्ट्रॉन ट्रांसपोर्ट चेन कहते हैं. ये क्या करते हैं? These also help in ATP synthesis. How? We will be doing it later on.
सही है.
ठीक है. अच्छा, I'm ending my meeting and then I'm going to restart again because it's about to finish the time.
Okay.
Right? Okay.